Unless you were wearing 3 garments of your sex at birth, you were breaking the law. They're not cuffed or anything.
Exactly. I noticed that. There's they didn't even have to use force.
Right. So they knew what was happening.
It's the 1960s, and if you were part of New York City's LGBTQ community, the police were watching.
So if you were a transdresser, if you were trans, if you were a drag queen, you were breaking the law.
The tension was building, and this striking photo from 1962 captures the persecution faced by a group of people persistently treated as outlaws. It was events like this that added to the powder keg that ultimately blew up in the Stonewall riots of 1969.
It was the precursor to a post-Stonewall world where people were exploring how far they could go.
And just to think about this era, in the midst of the civil rights movement, these Black trans women are being bold and free.
In 1960s New York City, places like Greenwich Village were blossoming with a nightlife catering for LGBTQ people. Another area was the gritty meatpacking district, where the declining slaughterhouses and packing plants had become a nighttime haven for the marginalized.
That's why it was so comfortable for our community. Since nobody wanted to be there, it was easy to just take up space and be our fabulous selves in it. I always go back to this though. My mind is always blown at the level of fashion that these girls were given back then.
This photo is from a ball held at the Manhattan Center and mostly attended by people in drag or transgender folk. During the 60s, New York's ballroom scene was becoming a vibrant underground subculture that provided a crucial space for self-expression, community, and resistance, regardless of race or ethnicity.
I could see how these ladies are defying the rules because the laws then were crazy.
On the night of the ball, it's thought that over 40 attendees were locked up on charges of masquerading and indecent exposure. At this time, the police had resurrected an old informal state law called the 3-Article Rule to crack down on the city's many mafia-run gay bars and also to specifically target communities like those enjoying the ball.
Unless you were wearing 3 garments of your sex at birth, you were breaking the law. For many years, it wasn't used at all because people didn't break that law. But then when people started being out and dressing, as the state would say, inappropriately, they brought that law back. That gave them the leverage to put pressure on people and arrest them and try to keep them from expanding the territories that they operated in, prevent them from corrupting the values of our children and good Christian families.
Incidents like this only electrify the growing frustration amongst the LGBTQ community at their lack of rights. It was heading to a boiling point.
What was happening here in this picture was truly happening across the country. There were these mini uprisings that would last for an hour, 2 hours in different places.
That moment came 7 years later in 1969 at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village, just a year after the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy, icons of civil rights and human rights.
So now you have mostly young people, people of all of the LGBTQ mixture in the one place where they could dance. And dancing and the music was the place where you felt free.
It is liberating. It's the movement of the body and being able to express oneself.
After increasing raids by the police, one night in June '69, a crowd of about 200 customers fought back, having been targeted and thrown out onto the street by the NYPD yet again. 4 further nights of protests and disruption followed. It would prove to be a pivotal moment and a cornerstone for the modern gay rights movement. It also helped embolden 2 prominent trans activists to co-found STAR, the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, in 1970.
After these events and talking about the civil rights movement, that is what inspired Sylvia Rivera, Marsha P. Johnson.
Absolutely.
You know, they were inspired by the Black Panther Party. They were inspired by the Young Lords and how they took care of their communities. So they were active and like starting a social service network for the community with Star House and feeding people. And that was their mission, their life's mission.
So all the experience of people like you see in this picture and all the experiences from all over the country just made for a moment when not here and not now. It just isn't going to happen.